So we're live. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is John. Welcome to Hago. And you're joining me today in the marketplace in the centre of the city of Durham. It's the first time that I've been here on tour. I think it's the first time that Durham has featured a Hago tour. I couldn't be sure about that. Wouldn't it be just now that the music starts? So I'm competing, but nonetheless, that city's for you. Always things happening. So without kind of further ado, let's just have a look at kind of where we are. So we're actually in the marketplace of County Durham, and like a lot of these towns, that sort of city actually, everything is orientated around sort of trade and kind of commerce and so forth. So in front of us is a nice door, so isn't it? We've got the historic marketplace. So I'm just going to pan out and give you. I'll tell you what this reminds me of, for those that are familiar with it. Ypres and Bruges, some of those kind of Belgian town centres. Obviously on a smaller scale, but it's definitely got a Flemish quality to it. And this marketplace was actually laid out in originally the 11th century by the Prince Bishop. We're going to talk about Prince Bishops a little bit later on. But this space was cleared, and it's actually was formerly a graveyard underneath this to extend it. So there is actually lots of bodies under where we are now. But I'm just going to give us a kind of spin round so you can kind of get a sense. And what we've got here is the sort of three main roads of the Durham Peninsula come through here. So in effect, it's like sort of an arterial centre. We're going to go up two of these today on the tour. But let's just start with, as I say, the market hall itself, because this was the place for the kind of market traders. And for about the 1100s, this was the focal point for life in the city, for obviously trading. And Saturdays would be the kind of main day. We've got a church here on the square, which is always traditional to have markets and churches together, if you like to kind of bless the bounty and the success of the drugstore. Okay. Sort of bless the market and the trade and so forth. So this is still kind of very, very busy on a Saturday. But what's really nice in this marketplace is they've done a timeline, which I'm going to kind of show you. So it's basically working to the center. Let me just come down to the bottom of here, and then we will. I'll talk about the story of kind of Durham as we're kind of going along. So it just starts down here, and I think it's really nice. So it's done in the ground, as you might say. So I don't know how well you can see that. So it says ripples of remembering. Leaves of learning. These names then from Durham, don't know how to pronounce that, Durham, and then Durham. And it's a timeline, so it starts in 995. We'll pick up the other story a little bit later on, but this is the arrival of the bones of St Cuthbert, which in effect is the beginnings of the city. This is why it's here, is Durham. It came to, if you like, it was the final resting place of St Cuthbert. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So then we get up to the year 999. And we've got then the first stone church. So the first, if you like, shrine to St Cuthbert is built purposely down there. Go up to the next one on our timeline. So 1006 to 1038, this is about the Scots, because obviously Durham is very, very close to the Scots border. And so consequently, you can see here, the Scots attacked Durham, but were driven off. Our next timeline takes us up to 1022. We're galloping through the centuries now. A real nice brass inlays here, so you can see there the raven, the bones, the relics of the Venerable Bede were brought to Durham, one of the great historians of the English language, Venerable Bede. Moving forward to 1027, King Canute makes a pilgrimage to come up to see the bones of St Cuthbert, and he walks bare feet. So very, very humble of the king to walk bare feet. So he makes his pilgrimage there. In 1069, we've got the Normans are now seizing the city of Durham, so they're taking over control after the Norman conquest. 1072, and we've got William the Conqueror orders the building of Durham Castle, which we're going to see a little bit later on the tour. From 1093, we have the foundation stone laid on the Durham Cathedral. So this is giving us a timeline of when all this was built. From 1100, the first of the three bridges were built. We're going to cross two of the bridges today. So it's really good, isn't it? It's so laid out in the market square. So 1132, we've got the Royal Mint being established. And basically being a mint means you obviously create coinage, which means it's a very, very important place. 1133, we've got the completion of the cathedral. So the cathedral you see it today was opened in 1133. In 1180, we now have a charter grant for markets to be held. So that's right here. So the markets have been held on this spot since 1180. 1346, we have the Battle of Neville's Cross, which again I'll talk about a little bit later on. Thank you, Fraser, it's very kind. And in 1371, the Bishop's Throne is built. So the seat of the Bishop of Durham inside the cathedral is built. In 1429, we've got the completion of the cathedral cloisters. So like all the big monasteries nowadays, they were built over time, not just sort of finished and then left, they kept developing them. But of course in 1540, we have the dissolution of the monasteries. Henry VIII, we talked about this in York, and Durham was no kind of, couldn't escape it, exactly the same fate. 1640-41, so early, just prior to the English Civil War, you've got the Scottish Covenanters coming and occupying Durham. Absolutely boo. And I don't know about this, so I'm going to dig out and try and find something about this, because in 1720 here, we've got a commemoration of Mrs. Clement developing a mustard. So if anybody knows about that, do let me know, because that's not really a kind of story I'm familiar with. I associate mustard with Norwich, but it may be, of course, that there is a link up here in Durham that I've been overlooking, and that I should make good on that, my knowledge. 1771 we're up to now, and we've got the floods which carry away one of the three bridges. So we'll see its replacement bridge today. And then in 1787, we have Durham Infirmary is founded, so healing the sick. In 1790 now, we're moving through the time, we get the first streetlights. And the first streetlights were actually lit by whale gas, whale oil, as they were in Whitby. Very, very smelly. But then they were replaced by natural gas from the sewers, because there were lots of explosions in the sewers, and so they decided to use the gas from, basically, effluent to power the streetlights. So, again, rather smelly. In 1809, we've got the building of the new prison. We're going to go down to the prison a little bit later on the tour. In 1832, get towards the modern time now, Great Reform Act, Durham University is founded, based in the castle. In 1836, Durham had its own city police force created. Nearly finished, guys, on this one. And in 1844, the railways come. So suddenly Durham is connected in to the rest of it. Yep. And Durham pick up, fantastic. So 1851, the town hall rebuilt. So I'm going to finish up there because I want to talk about the statues, two statues that are here. The first is this chap here, who represents the Durham Light Infantry. The Durham Light Infantry are one of the kind of the most well-regarded of the infantry divisions. They were light infantry because they didn't come with big guns, so they were very, very mobile, and consequently they were often used as forward parties, reconnaissance, and had a great reputation for being able to march fast and with stealth. And because they had no military drums, because obviously they were in front of the lines, they communicated by bugles. So you can see that he's carrying a bugle, and that the symbol of the Durham Light Infantry, that lasted until 1968, is, of course, the bugle. And they serve with great distinction in most of the kind of major conflicts. The statue, so I'm proud to show you that one. This guy, I'm rather less keen on, I have to say. He's an absolute B, I think. I'm not going to say the word, because obviously it's a middle of the afternoon, but the guy on this horse, dressed in his cavalry uniform, was responsible for a terrible atrocities, or at least didn't do much about stopping the terrible atrocities in Ireland during the Irish Rebellion, 1798. His name is Charles William Vane Stewart, the 3rd Marquis of Londonderry. And he's also was a very kind of powerful figure around these parts, because he was the owner of a great number of the coalfields and collieries around here. And it's thought that the reason he was dressed in his military uniform was that he was so hated as a colliery owner that if they dressed him as he was, that it can destroy the statue. And he went out of his way to prevent the reform of labour. So he fought to keep children working down mines. He fought to stop them having workers' rights. Anybody that supported striking miners was instantly blacklisted by this guy. He was a horrible person, and quite why there's still a statue. Well, we do ask ourselves these questions, Jim, but people seem to get very upset and say it's rewriting history. To me, it should be in a museum, it should not be in a public place, but nonetheless, it is here. It's not my city, so I can't criticise them, but were I a resident here, I would be campaigning against this statue as inappropriate in this day and age, but there we go. That's it. You can't change history, but we can come along and call him out for being the big B or C or whatever you want to call him, but he certainly is one of them. One of history's best. But what he did develop was Seaham Harbour, which is, if you remember our Mary Ann story from a couple of weeks ago that joined me on the Mary Ann Cotton, that's where her mother lived with George Stott, was Seaham Harbour, and this was a port. There was a big attempt to create ports to export coal, so that was kind of sea and port. So yeah, not a nice guy. So we're going to wander down. And another story now that's quite cute, actually. No, we're not going to cancel culture, but I think we should be able to call out people for their behaviour. So, that's what I've tried to do there. I've given him both barrels for his behaviour. Now, on the site, unfortunately, not very attractive right now, on the site of Una Memento, is the house of a lovely kind of character around here. They call him Durham. Can you see that? And he's called Sir John Duck. And there's a lovely story about Sir John Duck, because he doesn't start off as Sir John Duck. He starts off as plain old John Duck. And he has a dream, which is to be a butcher's apprentice, which doesn't seem, does it, on the face of it, a particularly, kind of difficult, ambition to reach. Apart from the fact that to be a butcher's apprentice, you needed to have both a gold coin and to come from a good family. And he had neither. So consequently, as he kind of came to Durham to try and find and secure a place for himself as a butcher's apprentice, he basically got the door shut and he's pushed his face time and time again. They didn't want to know. You haven't got a coin, you're not from a good family, you're not coming in, as you might say. So he'd visited pretty much every butcher's place in the city, and you can imagine really despondent, down at heel and feeling sorry for himself, thinking, oh, I'm going to have to go home, tail between his legs. And just at that moment, when he was about to enter the last butcher's, it said that a raven dropped a gold coin at his feet. So suddenly he's got a gold coin. He's not from a good family, but at least he's now got his gold coin. So things are starting to look up, right? So basically what happens next is brilliant. He goes in the butcher's shop, and the guy takes one look at him and is like, no chance. You're not coming in. You're not going to come and work for me. But then his daughter was there, his daughter Anne. Just sort of saw John Duck, and I think she obviously sort of fell in love with him, or kind of fell for him. And she then persuaded the father, said, oh, you've got to let this guy have a chance, let's employ him. And so, consequently, he agreed. And so this chap was called John Heslop, and so Anne Heslop was married then to John Duck. Not long after her father died, so he inherited the business of John Duck, became incredibly successful as a butcher. He became Lord Mayor of Durham six times, and eventually was knighted. So this guy who couldn't find a coin, and was about to run out of luck, was saved by a raven dropping a coin at his feet, which is a wonderful little bit of serendipity, a nice little story. That just shows kind of never give up on your dreams, doesn't it, really? If ever there's a reminder of the importance of keeping on believing, even when it seems like all is lost, I think John Duck, and the story of Sir John Duck, gives us a kind of nice thing. So we're moving towards now one of the famous bridges, Framwellgate Bridge. It's one of the three historic bridges, and I'm going to give you now your first shot, just in a moment, of the castle, and then we're going to talk about some kind of Norman history, if that's okay. So I'm just going to try and find a place that works for us. You can see now we're over the River Wear, and basically Durham, the city centre, the sort of peninsula, sits on, if you like, a bend in the river, and you'll kind of see this as we kind of go around. It kind of makes sense. But let me just sort of turn around so you can get your first view. Can you see that, right, the castle? So this castle stood here for nearly 1,000 years, and together with the cathedral, which is just over here, they jointly form the UNESCO World Heritage Site. We're going to go up there and obviously have a closer look. But I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of the background, really. It's commissioned, this castle, in 1072 by William the Conqueror. So it's got a powerful symbol, of the early kind of conquest. And William had found it very, very hard to take the northern England. It took him long enough to take York, even more so to take this, because these were under kind of Viking and Norse control. And of course, relatively short trips across the sea, they can get reinforcements. So it's very, very hard to hold these northern places. So castles were very, very important, sort of strategic ways of doing that. And of course, you also have the threat of the Scots here. So when you look at the kind of the height of the castle above the ground, you can see why this spot was chosen. It's about 100 feet above the river. So if I'm just going to pan us down here, you'll see the river is quite a long way sort of below. So this kind of peninsula sort of perches up above, and it makes it, of course, then, a relatively easy proposition to defend. So it's not difficult to understand why that kind of site was chosen. But I'd say it was as much about the exerting the rule over Northumbria, which was very sort of independent. But as I say, the Scots were a kind of constant threat. And the seat became the home of the Prince Bishops, which we can talk about in a moment. So the Prince Bishops basically is a combination of both ecclesiastical and temporal rule, or spiritual and temporal rule. In other words, earthly powers and spiritual powers. And the reason what it was up here, William appointed one of his own men as Earl of Northumbria, and obviously there was then a bishop. And so, how did the Prince Bishop get his title? Well, the Earl of Northumbria got himself involved in an act of treachery, and he was executed in 1075 by William the Conqueror. And so, he then sold the title of the Earl of Northumbria to the bishop. So, William Watcher was his name, and so he became the first Prince Bishop, which meant he held simultaneously the title of the Earl of Northumbria, but also the Bishop of Durham. So it's a combination of those kind of two elements together made it, in effect, an incredibly powerful role. And this role exists until the 1830s, the Prince Bishop. And in effect, they were like sort of minor kings, really. They could issue coin, they controlled armies. It is music in the street, there's an awful lot of buskers around here. This bridge that we're just coming down through the side, Framwell Gate Bridge now, this was originally built in 1127, and the bridge has been here since Roman times, but this bridge was actually substantially rebuilt in the 1300s. And previously, I'm just coming down the riverside here, there have been rows of buildings and shops and all the way sort of across there. These days bridges are clear, but at one time they were full of kind of houses and buildings and shops and so forth, so kind of rather different feel. But again, I'll just kind of pan up and give you a nice shot looking over the riverside. And there was also a gatehouse just here, which guarded the entrance to the city. So I'm going to go down the riverside now, and it may be that the signal drops a little bit as we walk along, but don't worry, it will come back. So the bridge was initially built by Bishop Flambard, who was the third of the Prince Bishops, and he was responsible for Flambard for basically the development of the city, the castle and the cathedral in the early 1100s. So he really is a kind of key figure, is Flambard. If we're looking at this scene really here, it is the River Wear, absolutely, Pamela. This really is moving, so that hopefully that kind of comes back up sort of fairly quickly. You can sort of see how the River Wear, if you like, wraps around this area. So it's a sort of fully enveloped loop, as you might say, around the river. So I know the signal's dropped, but hopefully gone back up. And so what that basically does, it creates a peninsula, and it creates a kind of space that is then obviously very easy to contain buildings and to defend, build a castle and so forth. So I'm just checking the signal, it looks okay. So let me tell you then about Durham and about its kind of founding. And it really is, essentially, we need to understand first of all about the saint that's here, St Cuthbert, who is interred within the ruins there. And St Cuthbert was born in the 7th century, and he didn't start off either as nobility or from particularly good stock. He was a shepherd by trade, but at the age of 17, he had a vision whilst out with his flock, and he saw what he came to realise was St Aidan's soul being escorted up to heaven. And so when he described what happened, obviously people pretty discarded it at first. When they realised that at precisely the same day, some distance away, St Aidan had actually died, obviously there was some credence here, and it was at that point, obviously, he became a monk. And he was a very successful monk. He was very, what's the word I'm looking for? He was very well liked. He was very kind of affable. He ended up being the principal monk, the prior, up at Lindisfarne, Lindisfarne Abbey, not too far away from here, in the northeast. But actually, he yearned for solitude. So, despite sort of lots of promises of very, very good jobs, very good natural defensive spot trees, absolutely. Sort of despite his being offered lots and lots of jobs as abbots here and there, he decided actually to go and live on an island of Farne, one of the Farne Islands off Northumberland coast, as a hermit. And at the end of his life, he agreed to be buried on Lindisfarne, but with the condition, with the kind of caveat that if the monks were ever to move, they must take him with them. So this is where he was interred, was at Holy Island. But of course, as many of you will know, the Holy Island, Lindisfarne Monastery, was struck twice by Viking raids. The first in 793, and then again in 875. And it was clear that it simply wasn't a safe place for the bones of St Cuthbert. And so they moved him. They disinterred St Cuthbert's bones, and they were amazed to find at this point that despite the fact that he'd been dead for, what that'd be, 250 years, his body, he looked asleep. So, they were kind of greatly shocked that there'd been sort of no deterioration, which is further kind of sense that this guy was a saint, and that obviously he had great powers that could be kind of called upon. And throughout his life, he'd been kind of known as a healer. And wherever his bones were, wherever his body was, people would come to get healing from him. So he was, he's very much kind of associated with wellness and kind of healing. And this happened consequently over and over and over after his death. So it really was, a very popular thing to come to pray at the shrine of St Cuthbert, wherever he was. So they first moved into a place called Chesley Street, which is where Durham Cricket now play, and that's Chesley Street is probably about 7 or 8 miles away from here. But again, a further Viking raid caused them to move his body again, this time down to Ripon in North Yorkshire, another place I'm going to take us on a tour at some point. Very pretty place is Ripon. Let's turn us around and give it another shot down the rather nice River Wear. Rather relaxing. You probably can hear the mill going right in the moment. The Wear, sorry, near the mill. And so, en route to Ripon, then they realised there was another Viking raid coming, and so they headed up. So it's an Anglican church, Jim. They headed back up to this part of the world, and I'll pick up the story in a little bit, because I want to just tell you about the mills here. So the Prince Bishop built 2 mills here, one on this side of the river, and one on the other, which we're going to see in a moment, and they created this weir. And so the weir basically is a kind of artificial creation, and it basically is to get the river to go faster. So you're able to see the movement of the water, hopefully. So as that's coming down on the kind of weir, the weir on the weir, if you like. So it's called the River Wear, but actually the thing is called a weir. So to confuse you, one's W-E-A-R, the river, one is W-E-I-R, which is so the weir on the weir. All right, let's. And of course, what it does, it creates more momentum. So in terms of them being able to drive power and the mills and so forth, that's kind of jolly useful. Is to have that kind of additional bit of poke. So just watch the signal. It's pretty good. So you can see here, either side of the weir, we have. No, Jim, Anglican didn't steal anything. Well, I mean, I suppose depending how you choose to look at it, it's called the Reformation. When Henry VIII decides that for his own expediency, he needs a divorce. So consequently, as a Catholic, he can't get a divorce. So the best thing that he's going to do is introduce a new Protestant religion in the UK. And once that had been introduced, they then, if you like, annex all the property of the church. So that's how it came that all the cathedrals, the churches, the lands and so forth, that had been formerly part of the Roman Church, then became part of the Church of England. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Slowly, I suppose, is one way of putting it, but it's a long time. They didn't go anywhere, and obviously they're still there. So they're kind of stolen in plain sight, as you might say. But you can see here with the movement of the water, how many of the woods and bits of trees are kind of caught up. So I'll just bring us across here. Oh gosh, we're already 22 minutes in. I need to get us up there. So let's give you a nice postcard shot from here, and then we will do our best to make our way up the hill, and we'll go and have a look round by the castle thing. It's lovely, isn't it? It's a really nice. It's really nice. Yeah, I think so, Pamela. It's just a really kind of pretty, natural. There's an interpretation board here, guys. So I'll let you take a snap of it. You can read it at your leisure, okay? Because we've not got time to. But this is about the mills. So if I hold that like that, oh, there we go. You can hopefully read that information at your leisure. Good. So let's walk on to the next bridge. So the next bridge is going to take us up. So we're now kind of going upwards. And as I say, the whole feature that you can't mistake as soon as you arrive in Durham is it's up and down. So again, it's like Whitby. It's one of these tours where you'll hear me get a little bit out of puff from time to time. Because it's just the very nature of it. That's why it was built where it was, to defend it. So consequently, this side, if the signal drops a little bit low, don't worry about it. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. There's just 1 or 2 dead spots I noticed kind of on the route, and so they will. This is a very much up and down. So I know the signal's low in a minute, but hopefully as we come round to the bridge in front of us, and what an attractive bridge it is as well. So there's 3 main bridges that link up the city, or what they call the. If you have a look on the map, because I think that my mapping software is up today, you should be able to see there's like a loop, like a U shape, and that right in the middle of the U shape is the peninsula, which kind of holds it all together, if that makes sense. So this is kind of makes a lot of sense as to why it was built up here. Sorry, I know the signal's low at this moment in time, but just bear with me. It will improve in about the next 30 to 60 seconds, but I didn't want to lose this river view. So consequently, sometimes you have to do a kind of trade-off and say, well, I know it's not going to be perfect, but do you want to chuck out a big chunk of what would be wonderful in order to prevent there being a dead bit in the middle? But hopefully that dead bit is coming to an end. You'll be able to see what I'm doing very shortly. I don't know if you still can hear or see me. I'm 1 out of 5, but I know when I hit the bridge in about 20 seconds, that is going to improve. In front of us here is the... okay, thank you, Bonnie. So hopefully we're somewhat like kind of back up now. It's just patchy, this bit. But as I say, it's so pretty that I didn't really want to cut out a big chunk of the tour because there's a few hundred yards where the signal is downright iffy. It's one of those kind of very thick ancient walls. Yes, that's right, Bonnie. You know, easy capture. And this is what we're kind of coming up to now, obviously, is a section here of the city walls. So everything about this place is about defence, as you can imagine, about kind of protection. And so as we come into kind of the top section now, where the historic part, the university, the cathedral, the castle, is... I've missed much in the first castle bit. Oh dear. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully he's okay after that. I'm sure it's not a nice thing to do, but hopefully he can rest up and be back on his feet in no time. So this archway was opened up, I think, in the 1830s to basically allow vehicles to come up and come through. See, I'm getting a bit out of breath now because it's a big uphill walk bit there, but we're now kind of within what you might call the kind of cathedral precinct, as you might say. And this is the real kind of historic core of the city. Hopefully it's nothing I said. Hopefully it wasn't watching me and slipped. But also kind of university quarter. So it is very much, if you like now, this whole area is a UNESCO site, obviously principally around the castle and the cathedral. But there is a sort of wonderful... This is the colleges around here, the college of the university. And it's what they call a collegiate university. So that means that students come and they enrol as members of certain colleges rather than just what courses they're on. York's similar as collegiate, and Oxford and Cambridge are collegiate. So it does create a different kind of feel. So I'm getting a bit out of shape, guys. I'm going to have to shed a few pounds, I think, and do better, because it is a lot of uphill here. But oh, really, Tris? What they're professor of? One of Tris' friends is a professor in Durham. So we've got St Mary, the Church St Mary the Less in front of us, and there's 3 churches dedicated to St Mary here in this little part of Durham, including the cathedral itself. And this is the smallest, which is why it's called St Mary the Less. It's a lovely little church. I pop my head around the corner, and guess what? It's it's dead, is the 4G, wouldn't imagine, because as Bonnie was saying, great thick walls and so forth. But nonetheless, it just all adds to the ambience. You know, it's very quiet. It's just a lovely place to be. So we mentioned about St Cuthbert, and we got to the story, if you remember, that the third time they had to move it, he'd moved his bones down to Ripon, and yet another Viking raid comes. So they head up back north, and they are heading back up to Chesley Street, and they're carrying his body on the back of a cart. But it gets stuck in mud, in rutted wheels. You can't move it on. And for 3 days and 3 nights, they get stuck. And on the 3rd night, one of the monks that is charged with carrying him around, St Cuthbert appears in a dream to him. And he tells him he wants to be buried at Durham. And that's great. You know, they now know where he can lie in permanence, but they don't know where it is. And at this moment, apparently, there is a lovely story which is hopefully true. By the way, I'll just pause for a minute. This house here is a distant relative of the Queen Mother. So remember, she was Elizabeth Bowes Lion. So Prince Charles put a plaque here in 2018 at Bowes House. And so they didn't really know where Durham was. So what they got an incredible bit of luck at this moment in time. There were 2 milkmaids talking, and one of them had lost a cow. And the other one said, well, where did you last see your cow? And she says, oh, it's at Durham. So with this knowledge, the monk said, right, can you take us there and show us? And this is where we are now. He's at this spot. And so it was, from this dream that St Cuthbert had conveyed to the monk that this was the place where he wanted his body laid. So the first church was built here, and then, of course, the abbey was built, the cathedral church was built. It started in 1093. So I saw that. You do feel sorry from day to day. Pop out for a minute and suddenly you come back and you've got parking tickets. So, not ideal. I'm just going to take you to have a quick look at the College Green, just one side of the cathedral. So, I'm keeping an eye on the 4G, but it's just a very sort of nice sort of cathedral cloister, as you might say. Very attractive elegance, I think, about the buildings that surround this part of the city. On 1 out of 5, I'm not going to bother actually, because at 1 out of 5, it's just not worth the. I know, 4 out of 5. It can't decide what it wants to do today. 2 out of 5. It's a very, very better signal, but you never quite know. I'll just take you to see the water pump, which I think is fantastic, because it's a real thing of beauty, and then we'll get a shot of the eastern side of the cathedral, and then we'll pop back out and head towards the north side, which is the famous side we do here. So just getting the first glimpses again, or further glimpses, the cathedral. Yeah, just got this little water pump over here, which is a rather thing of beauty, I think. Somewhat unusual to see a sort of walking water pump. And of course, the water wasn't, for long, long times, we didn't have clean, fresh water. Of course, this was part of the problem of disease. Whenever people came to the same water pump, whatever was in the water, everybody was drinking it. And sometimes that water was passing through burial grounds, so typhoid and cholera and all sorts of nasty things would be in the water. But I know in the marketplace, the water wasn't safe to drink, so they advised people to go to the pub, the Market Tavern. So yeah, so good old-fashioned handle here, as you can see, the pump in the water, and you would have. Need two here, I think, wouldn't it? When you look at the spouts over here, you absolutely go to the pub. So I think you'd have to be a two-person operation, I think, to do that, wouldn't it? And then you can see the water and the grate down the bottom. So I'm just going to spin us back, and we'll go and have a walk around the back of the cathedral and go and find the kind of the north side. But I think you'd agree it's a lovely spot and it's a lovely day, and I've got 5 out of 5 signal. So that's me. I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy. When I've got 5 out of 5. I'm a happy guy, because it's already dropped down to 2, so it didn't last. My happiness was short-lived, I'm afraid, guys. I'm back now to the despondency of 2 out of 5. But let's get out of here. We're on 3. And have a good look around the other side of the monastery. So this obviously set up as a monastic house in the first instance. Like most monastic houses, a kind of community of monks would come to work, to pray, obviously to copy books, copy scriptures, and so forth. And of course, because St Cuthbert was here, they built the shrine to St Cuthbert, and then later Venerable Bede came as well, who was a very, very important sort of church figure. It meant that you got huge numbers of pilgrims. And pilgrims were incredibly important, not just to the welfare of the church, but also for the town itself. People needed places to stay, needed hospitality. So to have a very, very popular saint and a shrine was basically giving you a very, very solid and reliable income stream from tourism. And of course, for the cathedral itself, it meant that the huge numbers of benefactors. Oh, good, yes, a good idea. Yes, of course, dear. Yes, the trees are bare. Probably another 2 or 3 weeks, I'd imagine, they're going to start to sort of cover up, and then it'll start to occlude. Now then, just show you the sign here. So North Bailey. In fact, on the last few tours, we've been talking, those who have been with me, about Baileys, the outer walls of castles. And so, the Bailey, of course, is the you've got central keep, and then you've got the outer ring where often be garrisons, so soldiers will be there, potentially accommodation. Pilgrims absolutely were big business, and that's what York's wealth was largely based on as well. So this is, supposedly the site where the milkmaid, the last, saw her cow, as you might say, but rather than worrying about milkmaids and cows, let me instead, I like to take in this visit. If you like to walk around the cathedral, so rather than giving you one single sure if I can move or G, I'll stop and we can do some more postcards from there. But in the meantime, I will keep moving. Isn't it, Bonnie? It's absolutely something. So, for those that have been on my Minster tours, this is a good sort of 200-300 years older, much, much older. And it's what you call a Romanesque style, although you've got Gothic windows at this end, because obviously it developed over time. So Gothic, Durham has nothing to do with Spanish Camino, Diana. It is simply, we're talking about pilgrim routes. So that's how that popped up. Durham means it's an old hill, basically, is where the name comes from. And it came from the story of where St Cuthbert's bones were going to be interred. He appeared in a dream to one of the monks that was transporting his body from Ripon to Chester Street and said he wanted his body buried here. So consequently, that's the reason that the city is here. That was in 995, so over 1,000 years ago. And that's when work first started. So originally, a small wooden church was built on this spot, followed, of course, by the first stone church. But work began on this cathedral in about 1095, so this really was under the Normans. So this is very much a Norman cathedral in style. Everything about it is Norman. So it's quite squat, angular, much kind of lower towers than the later Gothic and medieval. It's fed in Ripon, yeah. York would have been closer, but I guess the fact that York was a Viking city wouldn't have really helped, would it? So that would be into the belly of the beast, as you might say. If you're trying to avoid Vikings, York wouldn't have been a good place to go. Okay, now should we get that with the little postcard there with the blossom? Don't know how well you can see that, and the central tower. Yeah, well, it has to happen sooner or later. Something I say makes sense. So this is, as I say, is being listed now by UNESCO as one of the great heritage sites of the world, and I think you can quite clearly see why. It really is a stunning proposition. Beautiful sandstone, of course. I'm going to take us around. I'm going to have a look at the front door. We're not going to go inside, but Bonnie's taking you inside later on her tour, so you're not going to miss out on that. But I didn't have any permissions to do that, so consequently I thought we would take a spin around the town itself. But I think you're going to get a sense, really, of quite how special this is. It really is a beautiful spot. And nicely, the daffodils out. It's always nice, of course, to see the daffodils. So I'm going to go have a look at the north door. I did talk to the guy that was on duty earlier, and she was quite happy about me doing this, so hopefully, even though it's like a different person now, hopefully she'll be kind of cool with it. But obviously, these are places of worship first and foremost, so we should always kind of respect that. Of course, they have very, very significant historical interest, but they are working Christian communities, so we must always ensure that we treat it with due deference and good manners. I think good manners is the word that I would use in this. So you see here, these very distinctive round-top windows. They're what's known as Romanesque. And Romanesque is, if you like, a byword for Norman. So it's an architectural style. So what comes after this is the Gothic, where suddenly things come to a point. It is gorgeous, Tish. It really is stunning. It is magnificent. I can't, come for better words than to just say, it's an absolute stunning building. I love everything about it. And I say we're not going to go inside. We're just going to have a look at the front doors. And we know, actually, from a brilliant bit of what they call dendrochronology, that the doors actually came from one oak tree. We used to have giant oaks in this country that all pretty much disappeared by the beginning of the 14th and 15th centuries. But these, we believe, from carbon dating and research, all come from the same tree. Imagine the size of the tree that was required to be able to create doors of this size. Hello, I did talk to your colleagues. I'm not going inside, I'm just doing the outside. Yeah. Do you know about the doors? Yes. Is what I'm saying correct? That,
yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We are streaming to the world to do say hello. The Durham Cathedral Guide. So we're just saying, we're going to look at the door knocker now. Can you tell us about the door knocker? Sanctuary door.
Sanctuary, yes.
Yeah. So a very, very special door knocker that now we have a skilled teller with us. So tell us about this very special door.
Well, it's a sort of this is a replica of the original, which is kept in the Cathedral Museum. It is a piece of bronze metalwork dating from about 1175 to 1200.
Yep.
And it's though it's known internationally and locally as the Sanctuary Knocker, it's actually not a door knocker. It's actually fixed straight onto there.
Yep.
And the idea is that anyone who committed a very serious offence could come and hold the knocker and be granted 37 days of sanctuary within the cathedral. And they would have they would have to wear white, and they would have a certain sort of area in the cathedral where they would have to stay. And after that period, they could either face their accusers or go into voluntary exile.
Absolutely.
And that would usually involve travelling to possibly to Hartlepool, which would be the the local port, and
leaving these shores.
Leave the kingdom, essentially. Yes.
So they'd be in effect banished as a result of that, and that meant as well you're outlawed, wasn't it? Anybody helping you would also be then guilty of an offence. So you're outside any form of protection. So it's not a good place to be. It's like a death sentence, really, isn't it, to stay on the shores?
More or less. I mean, you would have to you would have to vacate the sort of shores of England in about 3 days.
Thank you so much, everybody. Just give a wave and a thank you to very well.
Thank you very much.
Guide. Thank you so much. We'll walk on. We're going to have a look at the castle now, but just a lovely kind of story, really, a kind of history, kind of rolled in, and it's always nice just to kind of, if there are local guides there, give people the opportunity to hear from them and how knowledgeable they are and how committed and passionate they are. Can you allow us a shot of the pillars outside the door with the St. Comes? Yes, we can, Treat. So let me just spin round there, and yes, of course, wonderful Norman doorway in there, much given to Ian. I don't know if Ian Braisby's on, but he's certainly an aficionado of such things, isn't he? So absolutely. It is really peaceful here. It's really peaceful. Let me go a little bit further back. I'll try and get it all in one shot. I can't believe we're already on 42 minutes. There's still so much I'd like to show you. So I don't know how busy is the schedule after this? Does it match for running over it? Be crowding out all the guides, but if we run 15 minutes longer, is that going to be a problem? Thank you. Let's walk on anyway, because we're now walking towards the castle. So obviously the castle was built pretty much at the... So basically, when you get to the door, grab hold of the door knocker, you were then given 37 days in which to basically either make peace with your enemies, so whoever you committed this crime against, or make arrangements to leave the country. So in effect, it could have bought you a bit of time. So that's what sanctuary was all about. You weren't being found not guilty, you weren't being let off with your offence, but basically you were given a bit of breathing space to try and figure out what you can do. So in front of us is the Norman Keep. So it's a very magnificent castle, and in 1832 this became part of Durham University. So what we're looking at, thank you, Amy, all these buildings now are part of the Durham University. So in effect, we're walking through the Palace Green area, and I don't know why the marquee's here. I generally don't know. It could be to do with a student event coming up or something's been on. I don't know, but obviously we're right in the heart of the university, so my guess is that it's something to do with that. We've got the university library here on our kind of left-hand side. I can't take you into the castle. Again, there are official tours. I believe that Bonnie has been in and has got some footage from there and images to show you. So again, all the more reason to tune in to her tour. But obviously, what we're doing is seeing more of the could be graduation. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Probably a little bit early in the year for graduation, I would think, but it depends. Obviously, all universities do it rather differently, don't they? Thank you, Cindy. We're just about to show you here then the gatehouse. So the castle, as I say, was the home of the Prince Bishops. So basically, as you can see, this was a seat of very, very importance from a military perspective, but also from a religious perspective. So these Prince Bishops really were, incredibly had a royal mint here, and to have a mint is to be given complete trust, because obviously if you abuse it and you mint too many coins, obviously it can cause terrible inflation, do enormous damage. So it's a big responsibility. So whenever a place is given a mint, you know that they are very much trusted. I was talking earlier about the Durham Light Infantry. Over here you will see the memorial to members of the Durham Light Infantry that were awarded the Victoria Cross, and for the most part, of course, you have to die to make that happen. And you'll see that there is a spread. The PT is private, so in other words that they are the foot soldiers, sergeants, commissioned officers, lieutenant colonels, but also second lieutenants down there. And second lieutenants are basically the youngest officers, where you kind of start. So an awful lot of those were very, very young. They were the public school boys in the First World War would go in and take command of a platoon and were expected to lead them. So an awful lot of Victoria Crosses went to second lieutenants who were basically leading their platoons into machine gun fire in the battlefields of France and Belgium. So I think it's always worth taking a moment to commemorate the sacrifices that they made on our behalf. So let's move on. Another lovely shot. Thank you, everybody, for leaving those. Another lovely shot of the keep there. It really is a magnificent flying at the top there. I think that's the logo, but it's supposed to be Ukrainian. The university logo. It's the university logo. It's in Ukrainian colours. So I don't know if that's just a nice coincidence or they've had that produced. But either way, what a nice thing. So we're walking sort of back down the slope now. I'll give you more sort of glimpses of the castle, but I say we can't actually get into the castle area. So, it's quite nice to be walking down. I've been doing a lot of uphill walking. I don't know how Bonnie found it when she was here, but I suspect it's a bit of a shock to the system compared to Brighton, which is somewhat flatter. So just nice little kind of glimpses now. Going back onto North Bailey, so the outer ring of the castle. We're going now on Sadler Street. I'm going to work our way down across onto Elmet Bridge. Any questions about anything anybody's seen so far? Because obviously I've covered sort of quite a bit, and I know that the signal dropped 2 or 3 times en route. So if there's things that you missed, you want me to kind of go back over and try and cover. Well, I think, Bonnie, we can all admire, but Voyagers and audience alike, we're not as young as we used to be. So, fabulous pub on the left. Well, the Shakespeare's near here as well, isn't it? Is that what you're talking about, the Shakespeare? And the Shakespeare is meant to be, you'd think, something to do with Shakespeare. Actually, it's really old. The Shakespeare, I think it's about 12th century. One of the oldest pubs in England. And did you see a haunting, Bonnie? I believe it's reputed to be the most haunted pub in Britain, although quite a lot of the other... Do you know that, Diana, the 37 days, I don't know. Diana's asking why were they given 37 days? What is the symbolism of that for Sanctuary? I couldn't know. It's well worth looking up. But yes, so this is the place where Bonnie went, the Shakespeare pub, reputed to be the most haunted pub in England. And I believe it doesn't look that old, so I guess it must have been the facade being rebuilt. But I believe there's been a pub here since, let's just here, look, here we go. So the Shakespeare pub, so obviously the Shakespeare name must come later. There you are. This building dates back to 1109. And the inn was called the Ostler and Groom. So an ostler is somebody who looks after horses, and a groom somebody who looks after horses too. So that's 2 horse professions. In 1468, it remains one of the most haunted pubs in England. And here we are, another clue to the past. So Moatside Lake. So of course the moat surrounding the Outer Bailey, the water being a formidable element of defences. So we're now going to go across Old Elmet Bridge. So the marketplace where we started, see where the bus is coming? If you kind of look straight down there, that's where the marketplace is, where the tour started 50 minutes ago. So I think that kind of gives you a sense that, how we've done the loop, if you like, around. So we're now going to be going down for a little bit. And but isn't it nice? I think it's just a nice place to kind of walk around. Hopefully you're getting a sense of what a lovely sort of vibe it is here. I think it's always just worth just trying to give you a little bit of the sort of street scene to kind of take in, so you can get a sense then of those that are thinking, oh, shall I come or not? I think you'd agree it's just got a lovely vibe. Now, of course, it's a Thursday, and I guess on a Saturday it'll be a lot busier than it is now. So as ever, coming when it's a little bit quieter, not perhaps in the middle of summer, not on a Saturday, but I think that notwithstanding, it's got a lovely vibe. Like so many of the historic cities in England, whether it be Canterbury, whether it be York, whether it be Oxford, they've just got this lovely, peaceful sort of vibe. That's why I love living in York so much. And that time just sort of happens slowly here, if that kind of makes sense. Sam's probably coming Wednesday. So we're about to pass over Old Elmet Bridge, another one of the 3 ancient bridges that kind of links together the island. So I'll try and give us a river shot in a moment. So you can get there used to be an ice rink down here, funnily enough. Those Canadian soldiers were based here in the war, and so an entrepreneurial local guy used the water power from the river to power up the freezers. So there's an ice rink here for the Canadian soldiers, and the Durham Wasps are a very successful ice hockey team as a result. So you can see people there. Can you see them on the boating on the water? It's a lovely scene. Oh, Joyce in York. Yeah, fantastic. Well, if you come to York for a week, do come and say hello if I'm out on tour, Joyce. Lovely to see you. So I think the boat hire is just down here, the Boatyard pub. So as you can see there, look at that. It's like Knaresborough. Those that have been to Knaresborough in North Yorkshire. Sadly, a beautiful place, Knaresborough, just rubbish 4G. But a lovely rowing boats like that. So what a lovely day it would be today. But I'm by myself, so I think doing a tour and rowing would have been a bit of a kind of tall order. So not going to do that. But where we are going to work toward now is towards Durham Courthouse and Jail. And apologies for anybody that didn't come on my Mary Ann Cotton at home Winter's Tale. I think quite a few of you did, or at least will be aware of the story that a lady that is related via marriage to me in years gone by through my mother's, through my grandma's mother's line. She was convicted of murdering her stepson, Charles Edward Cotton. She was executed in 1873, but she was suspected by many of killing very many more, possibly up to 6 members of the Cotton family, the family to which I am related. But on that tour, we talked about really the fact that whatever she had or hadn't done, the whole setup really was very much murky. The evidence was circumstantial at best. She had no defence. She was given terrible legal advice, to say nothing, so her ability to actually challenge and explain away wasn't given to her, and it ended up really very, very badly. But did she? So I haven't ever set out to say what Mary Ann did or didn't do. I think there's very much a case to answer, but I think it's almost certain that in today's court system, if the evidence had been put forward in such a fashion, the case would have been dismissed. The judge would have said, there is no case to answer, go away and get more evidence, and then build your case. Everything was very much on suspicions and ideas, but of course this was a very much an earlier time. And those that were on the tour will know, of course, that then she was the victim, or on the receiving end, of a horrible, cruel, botched execution. And that execution happened very, very near to where we are right now. We're coming up, so we've got about 2-3 minutes to walk there, but we're coming up to Durham Jail. And Durham Jail is one of the most kind of high security prisons. It dates from the 1820s originally. It is very much part of the same sort of set of buildings. And we're kind of in this area now. We're sort of moving away from the castle and the cathedral, that's kind of behind us, into what you might call a kind of civic area. So I'm just going to get down here, so we're not going to get run over. You see it's all beautiful Georgian houses, so quite clearly we're in an area of the professionals in terms of, places to live, officers, solicitors, scribes and so forth. You always tend to find a kind of professional quarter in most cities where people are kind of clustered together, and generally speaking it's around the court buildings, around administration, around justice and so forth. So this building in front is splendid red brick that I think really is... Do you ever do a tour of different architectural styles? Are you talking to me, Sam, or somebody else? I do in parts. I'm doing one on George and York and Dick Turpin in a couple of weeks, April 7th, I believe. So do look out for that one. But really, it's quite a stunning building. It's a former civic hall, so the former place of a meeting for the council. It's now a hotel. I mean, I think this is often the sign. I think these buildings that were often built for public administration are now kind of very high-quality hotels, but it's absolutely beautiful. The attention to detail on the brickwork, it's all done in terracotta, all original, of course. Look at this. So if you're looking for a place to stay, then I would definitely recommend the Hotel Indigo. Marco Pierre White has a restaurant in here, stained glass. So look at a Victorian civic pride. Let's give it a kind of shot up there. I think, these buildings, really do kind of show the pride that was put in, both in terms of the buildings themselves, but also what that says about the towns and cities. So we're coming round to the court building. So when Mary Ann Cotton was arraigned, she was put on remand and locked up in Durham Prison, which we're about to visit. Not literally, we wouldn't see the outside of it. And then she would travel to the courthouse, which is where we're passing on the side of now. We can see from the other side, on a daily basis. So basically, it's literally just across the road from the prison is the Durham court. And then once she'd been found guilty in March of 1873, she was then moved to the condemned cell within Durham prison and was executed within the grounds of the prison. And as those on the tour will know, it was a horrible, horrible execution. It took over 3 minutes for her to eventually die. She was strangulated rather than hanged properly, so not a nice way to go by any stretch. So let us come round here. Obviously you're not going to be able to dwell for long, because it's a prison. I don't end up inside it, so I'll be very careful what I go, where I see, but nonetheless it's just hoving into views now. So I might ask next year, because the reason that we're here, the reason I've scheduled this tour today, was this is the closest I could get to the anniversary of her death. She was executed on the 23rd of March 1873. So the anniversary is 2 days from now, and it'll be 149 years since the execution. I've researched the site, and I believe that the gallows were located just around here. It's very, very likely that she's buried in this part of the garden. And so, as we discussed in the previous tour, I've bought some flowers to put down on the spot that I believe is very near to the location where Mary Ann Carlton was executed 149 years ago tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So, whatever we think, he was alive, and she loved beautiful, pretty things, so I think she'd like these chrysanthemums. So I'll just leave them here in memory. And of course, next year then means it's the 150th year of the anniversary, so I'm going to get in touch with the court and with the jail and let them see if I can do something officially from inside, which I think would be a nice kind of memorable thing to do. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not, they may say no, but I think our 150 year anniversary doesn't come along every day, does it? So I've laid those down there, Voyagers. I think it's just a nice culmination of the tour. So apologies for those that weren't part of the Mary Ann tour. For those that were, I think hopefully you can see that as a coder, it's a nice thing to do to come here. But you don't really need an excuse to come to Durham because it's just so pretty. So I'm going to move us on, and we're going to take a last look at the riverside. And Dick Serving, yes, it was Susan, very, very sad, her life. You know, grew up in grinding poverty. And she's a greedy, very foolish woman, certainly a thief. Was she a murderer? We don't know. But she certainly didn't get treated very fairly. And I think British justice tries to lecture the world, doesn't it, about how they treat people. So if we're going to do that, we have to set impeccably high standards ourselves. And the reason that I know that that's very, very close to where she's buried is we're about to pass the actual site of the gallows, and it's next door to it is the last drop in. And there are a number of sayings that are associated with hangings. And the last drop in was literally a pub, because it was very popular. Public executions, people would come from miles around. It was a day out to watch a hanging. People loved it. And so, of course, there'd be booming alcohol sales. People would get very, very drunk. And the tradition was that as the cart was passing by the last drop in, the prisoner would be offered a final drink. Okay? And they had two choices. Okay? They could have one for the road, which meant they'd neck the drink. This is the side of the courthouse here that I couldn't really show you before. This is where she was tried. So, yeah, you could either take a drink, which meant one for the road, last drink of your life. But if you were staying off the drink, if you're abstemious, you would stay on the wagon. So that's where the expression on the wagon comes from, and one for the road is about condemned prisoners being offered an alcoholic drink just moments before they're executed. So, there you go. So we've got a nice profile again now of the cathedral. Up at the top you can see how we are significantly lower down now than we're going to walk down the riverside and kind of finish up our tour down there, because hopefully it's always nice to finish up by water. I can't really read the screen at the moment because of the bright light in my face. But if anybody's left tips or anything, thank you very much. That's very, very kind. I'm not ignoring it. I've simply got an almost black screen because of the very, very bright sunshine. Just the challenge at times of doing this is, you know, your screen just goes very, very dark. So if you're asking questions, you just hold on for just another 2 minutes while I cross the road by the riverside. I'm sure I'll get a better visibility and be able to address anything you've got. So I'm also sort of passing a high security area of kind of police and everything. So I'm trying to move sort of fairly quickly because obviously filming, capturing footage around prisons, police stations, secure places is frowned upon because obviously it could be used for escape plans, all this, that and the other. So as you can imagine, it's not a great idea to linger far too long in these places. You must do what you can, get out of the way so that people can see that your intentions are good. So just for the last stretch of it then, we're just going to cross over here, trying to get run over as I do it, and we're going to take you by the riverside for one last little parley. When I came across here earlier, I got straight across, and now there's absolutely streams of vehicles. So just bear with me one moment. I'll just try and give you something to look at, but it may be that I have to go down to the crossing. In fact, I think I'm going to have to do that because it really just does seem a bit risky too. You can see the not just the number of cars, but the speed they're travelling at. So I think it would be a bit of a risk to just sort of dive out in front of that. So I'm going to just go onto the crossing. So I'm sorry there's not much to look at right now, but you can have a look at me. Not that I'm much to look at, but at least it's better than just looking at traffic, isn't it? So the crossing is just over here, so we'll kind of cross over. So I've really enjoyed this this first time tour of Durham. Not been here, I mean, obviously I've been here before, but I mean, obviously it's the first time I've been here. First time I've been here with Hago, so I think it's been worthwhile. I think it's a place that's certainly worth coming back to. I'll come again next year, obviously, to celebrate the 150-year anniversary, but hopefully you've enjoyed seeing somewhere a little bit different. Thank you, Lynn. I've certainly enjoyed it. And as I say, of course, Bonnie's tour will sort of fill in all the gaps. She'll go into quite a lot more detail, I'm sure, than I've been able to for you today. Some of the stories, the history of the cathedral, the various bits of it, St Bede's Shrine, St Cuthbert's Shrine. There's a lot to see on the inside as well as, of course, more of its amazing, architecture and building. The build quality is second to none. So there's an awful lot more. I'm just trying to give you a bit of a taste, a little bit of a flavour. So thank you very much. Well, it'd be different, Bonnie. It's not a case of being good. We're not competitive, and we are to a degree, aren't we? But as long as you do it your way, it'll be great. I think that's what I'd say to any guide: is do it your way, and you'll kind of work a way of making it distinctly yours. And from what I hear, you get very good reviews. A lot of people think you're very highly of you, so keep at it, and you will master it if you haven't already. So we're just coming back down to the riverside. So you see up in sort of silhouette now. Right at the top. Yes, down the Old Bailey. We were there in London. I don't know if you was on the tour with Patrick and myself in London. We're at the Old Bailey, and the Old Bailey, is basically the edge of the castle wall. So that's where it was located. It was originally Newgate Prison was there on the edge of the walls. But yes, a Bailey's an outer ring. So it's not a single place. A Bailey is usually a circle, if you like, that encircles a town, or a fortified town, a castle. And the centre of it is like a keep, like Clifford's Tower, where we were the other night. That's like the keep. And you've got the Bailey, that is the much, much bigger part that kind of goes all the way around. So, yes, basically, wherever you've got a Bailey, that's not a single location. It is an outer perimeter. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a perimeter of a castle, a settlement, a fortified town. Also ways of describing it. So I'm just going to walk us down here so we can get and have a look at the river. We'll finish off down there, I think, because we've done the full sort of double loop there. So hope you enjoyed. Enjoyed is the right word. Going to lay the flowers, but I hope you would see why I wanted to do that, and why it kind of felt like the natural thing to do, having spent sort of 3 hours telling you about that sort of story and set of circumstances. So let's just finish up by the river. Thank you very much, and we'll see some people that are boating. So again, just enjoy the peace and quiet. That's right. The Mott was the hilly bit. The Bailey's the lower bit, but the Mott is much smaller. The Bailey is much, much larger. So that's kind of a way to kind of think of them. So I don't know how the sun's doing. If we can still get a bit of a sight of the cathedral just over there. But hopefully, just get a nice, peaceful. Yes, definitely, Janice. The walk on the walls, yeah, as I say, I cried off because I had painful blisters. So, yeah, definitely, all the York tours I do from time to time. I might do it next weekend. I'll get it slotted in, so it'll be very, very soon. But as I say, if I'd have done that yesterday, I probably wouldn't have been able to do this today. It would have been too painful to go again. So I think that this has worked out nicely. I'm glad that we've done Durham. It's another one chalked off. And thanks for Laurie JH prompting me week in, week out. When are we going to Durham? Soon. So it's been delightful to finally say to Laurie JH, there you go. Here's a tour that's enjoyed by everybody, but inspired by you. So, Laurie JH, if you're still with us, thank you so much. Has it dried out yet? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all right. I like being requested. I mean, unfortunately, there's quite a few places that that people want to go to, but the signal's lousy. I've kind of been and can't do that, so it's a shame. So thankfully, as I say, with that one bit down by the waterside where I knew the signal was going to be patchy, But I thought it's such a special walk that down there, and the views, from the riverside up to the castle and the cathedral are so special that I thought if it's going to be down for a minute, 2 minutes, it's okay. It's a sort of price worth paying. Because if you try and avoid every time you have 4G issues, the amount of tours that we could actually offer would be so small, or they'd be all really, really short. So I think sometimes you have to accept that it just goes with the territory of live streaming, that there's going to be the odd dead spot or two. But I think we all managed to stay with it and stay together, and thankfully the chat seemed to keep working. So thank you so much, everybody. So that's me for today. I'm next out and about on Friday. We're going to Liverpool. So if you didn't come last year, and if you did come last year, come again, because it's one of the best tours, the most enjoyable tours that I do, and that is a walk with the Beatles in Liverpool. I'm going to take a ferry across the Mersey, so expect, if you haven't done it, it's a joy. If you have done it, come and do it all over again, because it was a great fun tour. So thank you, Susan, for that reassurance. It definitely worth a few blanks. That's just life, isn't it? It's digital life. In years to come, it'll get better. Right now, we've got to work with what we've got. So thank you, everybody, for joining me here today in Durham. I'm going to leave. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to pick up my wife, so I can't stick around any longer. But thank you so much, everybody. I've really enjoyed the time in Durham. I've enjoyed the time in your company. I've enjoyed showing you somewhere new. And there's always that sense, of course, as well, when it's not a place that you know so well, you don't kind of tour here, that you can sound a little bit undergunned in terms of your knowledge. And I think that's just, something we have to live with, isn't it? When we go to new places, you do as much genning up, but of course I wouldn't claim to be an expert like a local guide, so that's why it's nice to ask people like I did up at the cathedral there to tell some of the stories, just to ensure that the information that you're getting is as accurate and full as possible. So I look forward to seeing you all in Liverpool, and I'm going to give you one last shot over Elmet Bridge of the boats from the other side this time, take a nice postcard and a nice place for me to leave you to the rest of your day, wherever it is you're going to. I do hope you have a lovely time, and I'm just going to finish up again with this rather nice shot down here of the boats all moored up, just waiting for someone to have a lovely afternoon adventure on the beautiful River Wear. So from me, in the city of Durham, to you wherever you are, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.